Chisa is finally here in the first phase of version 2.8, and her main role in your team building is to provide healing, shielding, and damage buffs specifically made for units that can inflict or do negative status damage like Chakona, Zani, and Cortethia, which makes her a bit more niche in your team building, but that's solely because we don't have that many units whose kits are tied to negative status effects. In terms of damage potential, she's very similar to Brand and Cantarella, which means she's not at the level of dedicated main damage dealers, but you can still clear all types of endgame content with her as a hypercarry per my testing at S0R1. In today's video, I'm gonna break down Chisa's kit to make it very easy to understand how she works, how much of a damage boost or damage loss she provides to Zani, Phoebe, and Cortethia compared to using Shorekeeper and Arrow Rover as her replacement, best weapons per my testing, and finally her best early sequences. Before we proceed any further, I want you guys to keep in mind that every footage used in this video was captured on the creator server, so some things may be subject to change upon official release. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Chisa's Forte circuit or playstyle. She has this Forte bar right here that you need to fill up before she can use her Forte circuit. You can gain some of these stacks with an intro skill, resonance skill, basic attacks, and liberation.
A pivotal moment.
But to do the highest damage, you need to apply Havoc Bane on enemies while regenerating 40 stacks, and that's where the Unseen Snare mechanic comes in, which is basically a special marker that you can apply on enemies, and the easiest way to do that in combat is by using her resonance skill, which is very helpful in multi-wave content because it can apply the mark on multiple enemies at once. You can also lock onto the enemy and the mark will appear. Once this special marker is applied on the enemy, dealing damage with Chisa will ignore 18% of the target's defense and allow Chisa and her teammate to apply Havoc Bane on the enemy by doing damage while the special marker is on the enemy. So this means that Chisa is by far the only unit that can apply negative status effects from off-field. And this is very important because the Havoc Bane is the first negative status effect that shreds enemy defense by 2% per stack. And with the help of Chisa's Ultra skill, you can stack it up to 6 stacks, providing 12% universal defense shred for the entire team as long as you have the 6 stacks of Havoc Bane on the enemy. Now with all that said, here's the easiest way to play Chisa. You intro, skill to apply or reapply the special marker and freeze the enemy, then basic attack until you hit the enemy with the giant scissors attack called Death Snip, which has a pretty decent scaling, skills of liberation damage, and heals the entire team. After that, cast her liberation, which will now fill her 40 stacks. Casting the liberation will heal the entire team as well and significantly buff the damage from chainsaw mode due to this multiplier right here per 40 stack that we just generated, so she's very dependent on her liberation as far as damage output is concerned. Keep in mind that when playing her as a hypercarry, you can apply the special marker with her skill or by locking onto the enemy and just rotate until you get to Chisa. Doing this ensures that her weapon buffs and her Echo Sonata effects get a 100% uptime. With full 40 stacks, all you need to do is press skill, which will transition into chainsaw mode. If you hold the skill instead, it's going to group up an unlimited amount of multi-target enemies as long as they have the mark applied on them, making it easier to damage all of them at once. After the press or hold version, just hold your basic attack button to proceed with Blitz Stage 2, Stage 3, and finally Eradication, which deals big damage. And that's pretty much how you play Chisa. For quick swap enjoyers, you can let go of the basic attack button quickly after holding it, and Chisa will be stuck in the animation to continuously do damage to the enemy so that you can use that animation to swap to another units like Changli for example to do damage and come back to Chisa to hold the basic attack again to start a different animation like eradication. I didn't really get that much time to experiment with quick swapping, so be sure to test it out with different teams and let me know your feedback in the comment section below. One last thing to keep in mind as far as her playstyle is concerned is that whenever you dodge with Chisa, instead of pressing your basic attack button to do a dodge counter, you can follow up with holding your dash button, which will trigger a different kind of attack that does decent damage, and then you can press your basic attack button to follow up with a dodge counter. Team building. Chisa has an outro skill that does two things. The first one allows the unit with the outro skill to stack negative status effects to the max, but this does not mean that it will allow every attack to apply negative status effects. In a Cortesia team, having Error Rover allows you to increase the max stacks of error erosion to 6. That is essentially what Chisa does, but for every team in the future where the main damage dealer needs the max stacks of all types of negative status effects that they can apply to do the highest damage. And being a sustained unit makes it easier to slap her into any negative status team in the future. Keep in mind that this also allows other teammates to stack Havoc Bane application to 6 stacks when the special marker is applied on the enemy after an outro skill from Chisa. The second part of the outro skill will allow any unit that can apply negative status effects or deal negative status damage, like how Zani does Spectrofrazzle damage, to receive an 18% defense ignore, which adds up to the 12% defense shred from having 6 Havoc Bane on the enemy. And the best part is that the outro skill is not lost upon swapping out to the next character. So this means that if the sub DPS or hybrid deals decent damage, their damage will now ignore 30% of the enemy's defense. Now, with all that said, the teams that she synergized with will be Zani, Cortesia, and DPS Phoebe team compositions. The following are records of my runs in the current Tower of Adversity reset to help you guys get an idea of the damage loss and damage gain that I noticed during testing. For Zani teams, Showkeeper did better due to her superior buffing capabilities, so Zani encountered a uniform damage loss across Daybreak, Dawning, and Nightfall by 3.3%. But the clear time for the Chisa team was 6 seconds faster due to Chisa's decent damage output that adds up to Zani's damage. But in the Showkeeper team, the damage dealt was heavily restricted to Zani because Phoebe's damage in the confession state is pretty terrible. For Cortesia teams, Chisa's team did better, but the damage increase was not uniform. Cortesia's basic attack 5 damage output increased by 4.4%, and the Special Liberation received a damage boost of 12.1% in the Chisa team compared to the S5 R5 Error Rover team with Blood Pact's Pledge. But the clear time between the two teams was not that significant, with the Chisa team being ahead by just 2 seconds. DPS Phoebe teams was a bit weird. In the Showkeeper team, Phoebe's liberation damage increased by about 7% more than the Chisa team, but in the Chisa team, heavy attack Star Flash increased by about 0.3%, which is not that significant, so it's almost the same. The clear time for the Showkeeper team was also much faster than the Chisa team by 7 seconds, since Showkeeper's buffs benefits S6 Spectre Rover as well. So the damage output was not restricted to one unit like the Zani Showkeeper team composition. For Hypercarry, I highly recommend using Yelin as her sub DPS buffer because Chisa is an energy hungry character, and Yelin's 2 skill casts regenerate a lot of resonance energy for herself and the entire team. Showcases for all the teams that I tested will be in the video description if you're interested. Now let's cover her build. Weapon priorities will be based on this sheet right here, which is a record of the damage output from the 3 broad blades that she synergized with. If you cannot afford her signature weapon, your first priority will be Lustrous Razor. You can see here that the damage output was about 16% worse than her signature weapon, and I had to do a lot of crit fishing to get this result. Second priority will be Lupus Signature, and it's only about 4% worse than her signature weapon. The 24% liberation damage bonus is easy to activate with an intro skill or casting her liberation, but it lasts for just 6 seconds, so if you dodge or get interrupted in chainsaw mode, you'll lose the buff before she finished doing damage. If you don't have any of these weapons on your account, feel free to use Augusta and GN's signature weapon, but Augusta's weapon should be the first priority because of the crit rate substat that gives you more crit rate overall. For her echoes, you should be running the 3-piece Third of Severed Fate and any 2-piece set that gives you Havoc damage bonus like the Midnight Veil or Havoc Eclipse. Your echo formation will be 4-3-3 Ward 1. The focus main echo will be crit damage Threnodian Leviathan if you're running her signature weapon, but if not, go with crit rate if you're running Lustrous Razor, Lupus, Augustus, and GN's signature weapon. The 3 cost will be double Havoc damage bonus, and the 1 cost will be attack percentage as usual. Substats priority will be crit rate, crit damage, and liberation damage bonus. Talent priority will be Forte Circuit, Liberation, Normal Attack, Skill, and Angel Skill. Rotations. Since the Cartethia team performed a little bit better per my testing, I'll be covering the rotation for that team. The most important thing to keep in mind before we get into the rotations is that Chisa's Ultra skill lasts for 20 seconds, which is not enough for the fill time requirement for the sub DPS and the main DPS. So I'm going to take you through how you can make the 20 seconds last long enough for your sub DPS and main DPS in the team to do damage. Here's the build that I'll be running for all teammates.
But I doubt they can predict which song people will play tomorrow.
You first start by casting Chisa's skill and spam basic attacks until she's done with the scissors attack. Now, simply swap to Chakona and regenerate 2 40 stacks with the jump cancel technique. If you cannot manage that, just spam basic attacks to regenerate 2 40 stacks. After that, go to Cartethia and spam basic attacks until she regenerates the sword in the middle. Use her echo skill here so that you can use it again when she's done doing damage. Now, we've made the perfect setup to make Chisa's 30% defense shred last long enough for Chakona and Cartethia. Go back to Chisa, use her liberation skill to transition into chainsaw mode, and hold basic attack until eradication is completed. Use her echo skill to do damage since we have Havoc Bane applied on the enemy. Intro with Chakona, who will now have full 40 stacks, so hold basic attack to use her 40 circuit. Skill, echo, and use her liberation. Intro with Cartethia, skill which will give you all the sword stacks, plunge, and use her liberation. Use her first skill and spam basic attacks until basic attack stage 5 is completed. Now use her second skill and spam basic attacks again until Fleur-de-Lis's 40 stacks are full. Now make sure you have 6 arrow erosion stacks on the enemy and use her special liberation to do massive damage. After that, spam her basic attacks in the Cartethia mode to generate the middle sword stack and intro with Chisa to repeat the rotation. Sequences. S1 is what I recommend as a quality of life change because of the anti-interruption that you get when she's using her 40 circuit. S2 looks tempting, but the 50% all-type attribute damage bonus only applies to the teammates that can apply negative status effects or do negative status damage. S3 is a huge damage boost for Chisa due to the 120% increase multiplier for the damage that she does while holding basic attack, and a whopping 240% increase multiplier also gets added to the last slam attack called Eradication. S4 is terrible, so don't even bother. It essentially reduces the 2 seconds cooldown for applying Havoc Bane on the enemy to 1 second. S5 is not that good either because buffs that increase damage multipliers like S3 will always be better than damage bonuses. S6 buffs teammates' negative status effect damage by 30%, which is great but restricted to Zoni and Cartethia at the moment, and it also buffs Chisa's damage by 40%. I still have no clue what type of damage buff the description more damage is, but I'm guessing is a separate multiplier to the damage equation, so S3 should be your stopping point. That'll be all for my Chisa character breakdown. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel because it's free and you can always change your mind. Our Discord link will be in the pinned comment if you're having any issues with the game, help with your build, or you just want a place to chill or hang out. My Buy Me a Coffee link will also be in the description if you would like to support me in any way. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.